Hey, hi, hello, divas. Oh my god, hey. Okay, first off, like, I'm feeling super butch because I just broke out my Phillips head screwdriver out of my pink toolbox and I tightened up the stand on my microphone here so it would stop falling down. But now I think I've got it all squared away. I think we're good. But also, oh my god, we did it. I mean, we did it, right? Here we are. If you're listening to this, divas, that means that I reached 10,000 followers on Threads. I haven't at the time of recording this because I'm trying to kind of be ahead of things. But by the time that this comes out and that you hear it, I will have reached my goal that I established back when I joined Threads in July of last year. So July of 2023. But like wild. It's wild. And I would never, ever, ever, ever would have thought that I would have this much of a following on social media. And I know it's not even that much in the grand scheme of things, but like I've never even had this much. So it's cool and thank you. And it's wild. Y'all are wonderful and welcome to whatever this ends up being. I hope that this podcast is something that you guys can come to and take a load off because the world is heavy and I want you to be able to come and hang out with me. This is supposed to be happy. This is a happy podcast, and I want to provide that opportunity for a guest to come on and share their passions with me and with the listeners. Like, this is such a low stakes, just for fun podcast. And yeah, like this is just for us to breathe, Diva? All right. I had to have my cup of coffee. It's like 12:41 p.m., so it's a little bit afternoon on a Saturday, but still I need some coffee here. But oh my god, so I guess I'm just going to jump right into things. I have a little bit of a plan laid out. I have some notes and I have like a general run of show in my head, but also I'm just really kind of trying to like let go because I was a little bit nervous for whatever reason about like getting started recording, like the amount of times that I sat here and like, just did just one more test to make sure the levels are right or whatever. And I mean, it was probably fine like on test 3 or 4, but I just kept on testing because it made me nervous, and I was like, what if they don't like it? What if I don't know what to talk about? What if I ramble?" But then, like, I had to think to myself, like, "It doesn't matter. This is just for fun." Like, remind myself what I even talked about in the trailer, which, like, thank you so much for the love I've been getting on that trailer. But what I said in that is like, "This is just supposed to be fun for me. This is a creative outlet for myself. I haven't had one in quite some time, but I'm just letting it go, and I can cut it up later, make it what I want, and I hope that y'all enjoy it." But I did kind of want to start things out with this being like the 10,000 threads follower celebration slash like the debut of my first ever podcast, which that's pretty cool. But I wanted to kind of dive in for those of you who may be here that aren't familiar with threads, didn't find me through threads. I really feel like that's not a lot of you at the current time that like this is coming out, but I'm gonna try to future proof things a little bit too. I don't know, like maybe hopefully this could get turned into something big one day. But I mean, future proof it a little bit by giving a little bit of backstory here. But I mean, for those of you that don't know, Threads is a meta app. So like the Facebook guys, Mark Zuckerberg, or I so lovingly referred to him as Zucky. But it's basically their version of Twitter, or X now. But I was never on social media. Well, I mean, I was, but like I had been taking a break. I was on like a multiple year long break from social media before Threads came out. And it was one of those things where like I saw something about it, an article somewhere, I don't know, about the fact that Facebook is coming out with Twitter or their version of Twitter or whatever, and I was like, huh, let me look into that just to see, because new social media platform, like something I haven't tried before. Like I had been very, very briefly on Twitter, like however long ago, like probably back in college, because I had like a social media class and social media project, and Twitter was a part of that. But I remember getting hate speeched off of Twitter, and I just never really went back to it. And everyone had, Facebook, or has Facebook. I still have Facebook. I just don't really do much on it. But I wasn't really on social media. and until Threads popped around and, in July of 2023, right? And, I wasn't even really on Instagram, but I saw that it was out, and I went and opened my Instagram, and it prompted me to do it, and I was like, "Wait a minute now." Like, but I was about to make a Threads account through my, like, default, my regular personal Instagram, and I thought for a second, I was like, "Wait a minute, like, this is a fun opportunity for the first time, like, really ever since being, I guess, in high school," but even then, like, I wasn't really, my full self, I was closeted and all that, but, like, for the first time in my life at 28 years old, almost 29, let me get on social media as a fully realized version of myself that is not worried about, propping myself up for like a job or like an opportunity, anything like that. Like I haven't just been on socials in so long because before, even when I was on social media, like, and I'm sure you'll find this out at, I'll tell it at some point. If you've been following me on Threads, but I used to be a drag queen. I mean, I say used to be. I don't think it ever really leaves you. Like that character is always here with me, but I used to perform drag regularly and professionally, and that was my last, creative venture, but also I was present on Instagram as the drag persona, and which the name of the drag persona is Bridget Azul. And you might know that if you follow me, but anyhow, so I was running presence as her, and that was fun, it was nice to generate that brand and all of that, but then it wasn't me fully, like it was me, but like not, it was Bridget, it wasn't Presto. And I thought some more and I was like, you know what? Let me just go and dig up one of my defunct Instagrams, which, and I had one like one of my old emails that I didn't really touch anymore. But I found my defunct one. I went and like got rid of anything that was on it. Went and kind of, cleared out the followers on it so that it could be like zilch. And because I wanted to start, like, especially after finding out that if you start your Threads account through your Instagram account, which you have to have Instagram to do, it'll transfer over all of your followers from Instagram that also use Threads. So you'll just start with however many, use both. And I really and truly wanted to see what could happen if I just started fresh. So I did that, and I started my Threads account in July of 2023 with 0 followers on it, and I was just posting out into the void. And I remember around, like, however long it took me to get 8 followers, like, that's the number I have in my head. That might not have been the exact follower count I was at when I made, this post, but I it was definitely less than 10, and, I remember just jokingly being like, "Oh, like, hey, divas, like, if I, if I happen to take off here at all, like, which I don't expect to, but, like, if I ever make it to 10,000 followers, because like, and I picked that one because like, to me, that was just completely ungraspable, completely just out of my reach. Like, I'd never even come close to that before. Like, my Bridget Azul account only ever made it to, I think, like 4.5 or something like that. And so it was something I never thought I could achieve, especially being just Presto. Because I mean, like, there was no gimmick. There was none of the glitz and the glam, and like I thought I had to have a gimmick, and there wasn't a gimmick, and I was just like, you know what? Let's just do it. Let's just go. And wow, suddenly here we are, almost a full year later. It's March 2024, and at the time of recording this, I'm sitting at a little over 9.3, so like 9,304, something like that. That's what I'm sitting at currently, and by the time that you're actually hearing this, I will be at 10,000, which I will have reached my goal. Bizarre to me, y'all, that like, and the community is just awesome. Like, I mean, yes, there's drama here and there. Like, you're on, if you've been on Threads, especially from the beginning, you've seen it. I definitely have seen bits of it, but for the most part, I think I've kind of curated my feed to where like I don't see as much of the drama, but the vast majority of the people I've experienced on Threads, it have been wonderful. And the community has been wonderful, and the support and the love that I've been given from y'all is, I can't even really express it fully. It's not like anything I've ever experienced before in my life. And it's such a drastic contrast to the way that I used to experience the internet when I was younger, especially like, still in the closet or whatever. Like I was cyberbullied in high school. I mean, a lot of us were, a lot of millennials were, and younger, I'm sure. It's still happening today. I guarantee it. It's still happening today. But I was cyberbullied as a child and teenager. And I say child, teenager. So like that's the bulk of my experience of being on social media as myself. And so this is it's a completely different experience, and I think it also helps that I am 28 now, pushing 29. Like I'm my late 20s. I know who I am now. It feels good. It feels good to stand in myself and like and have people respond to that in such a way. It's so such a positive, beautiful way. It's so humbling, and I know I hope that it comes across in some of the interactions that I've had with some of y'all on threads that, like, I've expressed my gratitude and, like, sometimes I really am just without words, like, I don't know how to express, like, how wonderful it is to hear or read such wonderful things about me, and, like, the fact that I have been scrolling through the feed and I have seen people, like, talking about me in positive ways without tagging me or anything, I just I it's wild, y'all, and thank you. Thank you so much. It yeah, yeah, wow, and I'm excited to have this creative venture, and, like, I know that I could have done this at any time. Clearly, I couldn't help myself, like, I'm starting recording this before I've even reached the goal, but, like, it it's really cool, and I'm rambling now, but I never thought I would get here, and, the little silly little goal that I set for myself is it's coming true, by now it's come true, gonna manifest that, and it's like wow. Thank you. Thank you for like, I mean, I have my day job that like I'm not going to talk about, but I have my day job that like, pays my bills and all of that. So this is going to really and truly be my creative outlet and my hobby. And it means so much to me that y'all want to be here for it. So let's have some fun. All of that. Sorry to ramble. Wait, you know what? No, I'm not. This is my podcast. You came here to listen to me talk. So I'm going to talk, damn it. But yeah, so thanks for being here. And let's vibe. Are y'all ready? Okay, so now that that's out of the way, let's get into it. Let's have our first ever Diva book club, shall we? Okay, great, great, great. I know that I posted about it a month ago when I started reading this book. I just finished reading the book, The Only One Left by Riley Sager, or well, I listened to it. Like y'all know, I've been audiobooks diva. I don't like actually reading the words on the page. But anyway, I just listened to that and very, very good. I finished it a couple weeks ago now, but I wanted to I pull up the supersummary.com overview of it that I'm just gonna run through really fast just to kind of give y'all the overview of kind of what we're talking about here. And then I did want to just chat a little bit about it. There may or may not be spoilers in here, so I will go ahead and throw a spoiler warning if you want to read the book. Highly recommend it. But I'm not gonna put too much effort into separating spoilers versus non-spoilers because I'm just here to talk about it. I'm just here to kind of spew my thoughts on it, my experience with it. And so, like, I'm sorry if it's spoiled, but spoiler alert, I guess. But let's start with the summary again from supersummary.com. The Only One Left is a 2023 gothic horror novel by Riley Sager. The novel follows home health aide Kit McDeer, who becomes the caregiver of Lenora Hope, the woman believed to be responsible for the grisly murders of her family when she was a teenager. So wild. It's a fun read. It's a fun one. It does have like it's a violent book. There's violence, gore, emotional abuse. It deals with opiate addiction and overdose. It deals with self-harm and suicide and teen pregnancy, traumatic birth. Like there's a lot of I guess trigger warnings in here, but I mean it's a thriller. It's a thriller book that's gonna happen. But I tell you what, it blew me away. Like I've only started this book club this year, so like I'm not like a huge reader normally, but this year I'm trying to get better at it. And this is my favorite book that we've gone through this year. It is like and the audiobook is great too. Like there are two different narrators on the audiobook, one for the main character of Kit and then another one to play or to voice the inner thoughts of Lenora and those sections of the book. But it It gave me vibes, like, listening to it, it kinda gave me vibes of, like Bly Manor, you know, like the Netflix show, like, kind of vibes like that, like, as far as, like, tone and things, but, like, it's very much, there are parallels drawn between, like, Kit and Lenora because they both have similar, experiences with being framed for the death of loved ones and their past, and, like, it's cool to see, like, how as we learn about the past of Lenora Hope, and what happened with her family and the murders and all of how she was, like, involved with that, or may or may like, involved or not involved, and then Kit having the same type of experience with the death of her mother and being a caregiver and having her mother pass on her watch, and the twists and turns, like, and it's of course, it's a whodunit too, like, who doesn't love a whodunit? But so it's a lot of there's lots of characters, lots of like seedy characters. It throws you for loops. It throws you off, or threw me off anyway. And it overall very fun book, very fun. The twists in the end, like it was like boom, 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 left, right, around, loop de loop, and whew, I was not expecting any of those twists, and it's hard for media to, like, throw me off with twists like that, and the fact that this one did it so many times in a row at the end there, it wild. I'm very impressed with it, very cool. We're actually gonna talk about it in book club tomorrow, and I'll have some more discussion about it, and what I like about it too, it's pretty cool because like, it takes place in the '80s, like, it takes place in 1983, that's when Kit then gets the caretaker role for Lenora Hope. She accepts it. It's her first assignment that she accepts after 6 months of suspension without pay because of the incident with her mother's death, which and she's grieving her mom or still dealing with like the guilt and the grief of her mother's passing and what her hand was in that. She's grappling with all of that at the same time that she is taking care of a mute, paralyzed, Lenora Hope, who is one of those she's the type that, like, there's, like, little rhymes about her, like, killing her family and stuff, like, that, the kids all knew like, she was like a legend, like an urban legend, and so it's in the big spoiler warning here, it turns out in the end, like, neither one of the main women were responsible for the murders in either of their cases, like, it wasn't Kit who killed her mom, it ended up being her father that killed her mom, and then Lenora didn't end up being the one that killed everyone. In fact, like, she wasn't even Lenora, she was her sister the whole time, her sister Virginia the whole time. So, like, it's that type of book where it's, like it's kinda soap opera-y too. All of my crunchy book review-ish, like, let me just tell you what I'm reading. All that to say, very, very good book, very thrilling, gory, has all those trigger warnings I mentioned, but overall, I highly recommend. I'd give it like a 5 out of 5, but then again, I'm not an experienced reader. I'm interested to know y'all's thoughts on it, but that's what I'm reading. So, like, now I wanna talk about what I'm watching, 'cause I mean, I watch a lot of stuff. Now, y'all know I watch mostly YouTube videos, and then, of course, Drag Race is the big one that I'm watching. But the what I was watching a lot of yesterday, and I think, like, I've always been a fan of him, like, Zach Sang. I've been watching a lot of Zach Sang interviews lately, and he's a really good podcaster, former radio host, and I think that he's really I've always watched him, but I think I've been watching him a little bit more lately because I'm taking on this podcast venture, but I admire him a lot. I think that his interview style is good, even though I know I'm not doing interview necessarily, but, like, his interview style is good, the production is good, like, he gets good get it's he seems genuine and nice, like, I've been watching a lot of his stuff, like, I watched his recent interview with Ariana Grande, or the part 1 of it for her latest album, Eternal Sunshine, and I was just the first part of it, so they didn't talk about the album yet because this part of the interview came out before the album did, which it is out now, we'll get to that. But yeah, so I've been really enjoying watching him and kind of observing and taking notes and seeing the kind of just looking up to him a little bit. So that's been fun to watch his stuff. I've also been watching Drag Race, RuPaul's Drag Race season 16. I've I haven't been like caught up in like watching a current season of Drag Race in a while because like for one, I was a former drag queen, and like when I was performing all the time, when I was a drag queen, I wasn't watching the show nearly as much. I was like keeping tabs on things, who was winning, like looking at the show recaps and stuff. But like when you're in it, at least for me, when I was in it all the time, I wasn't really watching it as much. But now I'm so removed. I haven't done drag in a while, but so now I'm kind of trying to get back in it and get excited about it. And like my boyfriend watches it. He loves it, and it's been fun talking with a lot of you on threads about it because having a community to talk to. Because like I said, since I wasn't really on social media a whole lot besides just promoting myself as a drag queen before. Like, I wasn't participating in any discourse online about it, and I mean, I'm really still not because the fan base is, whew, wild. But anyway, I have been watching RuPaul's Drag Race, and I just watched the latest episode this morning, because it came out yesterday. And again, spoilers, like it. If you haven't watched it yet, skip this part or whatever, go watch it. But it was just the funk episode, like the funk song, and when nobody went home, which weird. I'm not listen, I'm it's not that I'm against no one going home, but I think that Maya should have gone home this episode. I mean, she rhymed equal with equal, which I mean, nobody made a great big deal about it, but I thought it was a little bit like silly. But anyway, if I had to pick someone to go home, it would have been her. I also thought it was a weird move for Plain Jane to give her immunity potion to Nymphia Wind at like the last second. I mean, to me, that seemed like a power play because I really don't think that Nymphia needed it. I mean, obviously, none of them needed it. Yeah, it's also interesting then that the immunity potion expires on a week when no one goes home anyway. I mean, I guess that's the gag of it, but that thought hit my mind too. That like how interesting that the week that nobody goes home is also the week that the immunity potion expires. So the immunity potions were cool. I like the way that they did it, but it seems that they didn't really. I don't think they were used this season in the way that like maybe the producers thought that they would be used. I don't know. It seemed like they could have been more climactic than they were. But anyway, all that to say, overall, great episode. Loved the runway looks. Like the monochromatic, picking the color. I forget what the actual name of it was, like the name of the runway, but they all had to do like a color, and oh, just gorgeous. Like Saphira with that blue, like the Marge Simpson blue hair and that blue gown. Oh, and then Morphine, that purple. Oh my god. Those are the standouts. Like, I mean, of course, they were the top two of the week, so they're the ones that are standing out in my head. But like, oh, this is a good season, y'all. And I know there's a lot of plain Jane discourse, but I mean, I just think she's mid. I've talked to somebody all about it. I don't really think she makes great TV. Uh, I would tip her if I saw her performing, but like I think that she's an acquired taste, it seems like, and I think that she's fine. She's fine. I don't think she's gonna win. I think she's fine. But if I had to pick who was gonna win, I think it's gonna be Nymphia. That's who I'm calling right now. I get the vibe that she's been getting the winner at it. Again, I don't know for sure, but that's just kind of the vibe I've been getting. So, but I guess we'll see. Ultimately, we'll see. But that was where I'm at with this episode, and some of my favorites are definitely Nymphia is gonna be my pick to win, and then Dawn and Morphine are my other two. But then Saphira too. Oh god, it's a good cast, y'all. It's a good cast, and it's a solid final like group of girls. So I'm excited to see where this goes. It's been fun watching this season. And then also I've been dipping my toe into, Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, with my best friend, and that's been fun. Start jumping in from the beginning of that because I've never been on that train. I've never done anything with Real Housewives, so that's been fun going through and watching that. And then just all of the YouTube video essays. I am a video essay diva. I love them so much. So yeah, I was watching one by Jordy McNeil on YouTube. Jordy's one of my favorite video essayists because like she covers on there like stuff that I love, like Bratz movies, Barbie movies, like the animated stuff, girly stuff. So I love that kind of stuff. But she just did one that I watched this morning. That was the Lindsay Lohan doll movie. Aged Very Poorly was the name of it, but it was about the My Scene Goes Hollywood movie, that animated My Scene movie by Mattel that like featured Lindsay Lohan back like right at the time that Mean Girls came out. And I just like I've been watching stuff like that, but like so that was a trip to go through. But I mean, and a lot of the stuff I post about too as it comes through, but that's kind of where I've been at, like what I've been watching. The only other main thing that I guess I watched, the big thing that I didn't get a chance to talk about on this podcast because it happened a little while ago now, it's a little bit old news, was I did watch Saltburn, and I mean, I thought it was fine too. Again, like, it was really, really hyped up. I thought it was fine, but that some of the scenes were a little and I thought that the beautifully shot, gorgeous film, gorgeous, but I just thought that the writing was kinda eh, but, uh but anyway, and it was I thought it was predictable, but it was an enjoyable movie. I was entertained, and beautiful, just it was gorgeous. So that's what I've been watching lately, and after I'm done here, I'm probably gonna be watching more YouTube stuff, and of course, like watching, What You Packin' and all of the drag pit stop, like all of the all the Drag Race, like, sub YouTube shows that go along with the season. So I've been keeping up with those too. Listening to, like, that word I of course, like, I mentioned it a little bit earlier when I was, about watching the Ariana Grande, Zach Sang interview, but the Eternal Sunshine album just came out yesterday. Like, at the time of recording this, Ariana just released Eternal Sunshine yesterday, and I've listened to the whole thing all the way through, like, 4 times, 4 or 5 times. I really like it. It's a 35-minute listen, it's super quick. It's a concept album that's based on the film Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and, like, it touches on a lot of her controversies that she's been involved in lately, and it's a bop. I mean, the album's good. I like it. There are no skips for me. I mean, I've listened to it a few times through. I think my favorite is "Bye," like, so the second track on there. And then "Yes and" was a grower for me on there, absolutely. I love the R&B sounds of, like, the 90s, early 2000s R&B sounds she was kinda doing on here. Uh, and then, like, Yes and grew on me, although I did not like the Mariah Carey remix version of that. I just I it wasn't my favorite. Something about the production was weird to me. I don't know. I wish they had done one with the duet in mind, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, I wish that they had made a song specifically for them to duet on, not just a remix of the single. But then the other song that's, like, my second favorite, so, I mean, "Bye" is probably my favorite one. Um, and then I think that the one that I love the most, like, the one with the video, oh my gosh, y'all, the video for, "We Can't Be Friends," so good, and, like, I think that one pulls a lot of themes from Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, kinda like the ideas of, like, erasing the memory of someone from your mind, that there's negative, like, just negative thoughts around or feelings around, like, eliminating that person, and, like, the video for, "We Can't Be Friends" kinda touches on some of the feelings and the vibes of it, of being like, there's a lot of good stuff that comes with the bad stuff, like, your memory of people can be tainted, and how, like, there are so many good memories, but then, like, it doesn't take much to taint all of it, and, like, I like the concepts played with on the album, like, I like the idea, like, just the food for thought of, like, if you could remove someone entirely from your memory, would you? And, I don't know. I don't know if I would, but the visuals in the video were cool, and it evoked that feeling and that thought for me. But yeah, and then the visuals for the album are very cool, like, the all versions of it. I like that red is the color that she's going with. It's bold, it's strong, and yeah, I think it's a cool project. I like seeing that, Ariana Grande's doing a concept album. I think that that's cool. It I'm good for her, it was a fine album. I liked it a lot, and, moving on to the next thing, back to my, Slater and Kim Petras, right? Until something else new comes out. And then, like, what I'm playing right now, the new Fortnite season dropped today, the one with all, like, the mythical gods and all of that, and I played a little bit of that today. Seems pretty cool. I mean, I get the battle passes, play with some friends, like, it's fun, so I just been dipping my toe into that newest season. Battle Pass is okay, like, they're hit or miss these days, but it's okay. And then besides that, I have restarted just today as well. I made a character on Final Fantasy 14 online. They have, like, a free trial going on right now, or I guess, like, indefinitely. I don't know. My brother sent me a text about it the other day, how, like, it's the base game, like, the first two expansions are free trial right now. So I was like, let me give it a shot. A bunch of the threads gays are playing it. My brother's playing it, so, like, let me just jump in here and see. So I've been playing that. really just dip my toes into both of those right now. But that's really it as far as what I'm playing. Not playing a whole lot of games right now, but we'll see what that changes because I'm looking forward to like some of the new Sims, I guess Sims like games coming out, like Paralives. Looking forward to that. Have my eye on that. And then of course the Sims 5 itself, keeping my eye on that. But and I'll dabble in the Sims 4 every now and again. But for the most part, right now, I think that my gaming journey is going to be focused on Final Fantasy and Fortnite. Okay, so are y'all ready? I'm so excited for my very first guest of Diva, the very first guest on my podcast. I'm so excited. There's nobody else I would have possibly picked for the debut episode of my podcast, mostly because like she's wonderful, fabulous, so sweet to me, one of my OGs on Threads. But also, I was the very first guest on her podcast, Cup of Shokolatte. So I'm so excited that my first guest on Diva is Shoko of Cup of Shokolatte. And let's just go. Let's cut to that. Oh my gosh. Okay, hey divas. Okay, so I'm so excited to welcome my very first guest to the Diva podcast. And you may know her from her own podcast, Cup of Shokolatte, which I may or may not have been on once or twice. Or you may know her from Threads at My Name Is Not Steven, spelled with a PH, not a V. Welcome, everybody, Shoko! Oh my god, hi,
Diva! I'm so excited.
Oh my god, I'm so excited too. I see your beautiful nails. I know they can't see, but we're starting there. I see your beautiful nails.
Thank
Look at us
you.
nailing
I love
together.
yours. Ooh.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Well, how are you?
I am so good. I'm geeking out because this is like, despite having my own podcast, this is the first time I've ever been a guest. So I'm just like, I'm giddy.
I'm so excited, and I think it's just so fitting because not only like you being the first guest on my podcast seems correct and feels right to me because I was the first guest on yours.
Yes.
And that's so exciting. That was my it was exciting. Now I can't say that was my first time being on a podcast because I was a guest on one time, but as my drag persona, not as me. So that was like
that's
a
awesome.
different thing. But
Yes.
anyway, we're not talking about me right now because in this segment in Diva, I'm calling it I Want to Know Diva because I mean I know everyone's gonna get sick of me saying the word diva, but you know what? It's my brand.
I love it. I love
but
it.
I just wanted, since I already spent the first half of the podcast talking about my stuff, I want to have a section for you all the divas listening, and like my friends online, whoever it ends up being guests on here. I want to give space to y'all to share with me what you're passionate about, because I think that we don't get an opportunity very often to just like info dump about our favorite thing or just what we're passionate about. And I want to be a listening ear for you to just tell me about what you are passionate about. How does that sound?
Oh my god. Yes, I'm so excited. So when you first contacted me about this, I was like, oh, I have so many little hobbies, and then I think I was just like confused between like what is a passion versus what is a hobby.
Sure.
And then I was like, well, I have a bunch of little hobbies that I just like do, but I don't really know about them. Like I wouldn't be able to talk about them, like my nails or like my embroidery. It's just like little shit that I do that's like creative
Passes
and
the
fun.
time every now and again. Yeah.
But I wouldn't be able to talk about it really. It's just like, I don't know, I just do it.
Sure. Yeah, and I mean sometimes they can be one and the same. Sometimes hobbies can be the passion, but sometimes they're not.
True. Yeah, so then I was thinking, I'm like, what do I know about? What can I like share information about? And I thought about like the sign language that I do. And I need to preface that like I I don't want to call myself an activist because I'm not active with like deaf rights and stuff.
Sure.
But I've done like self-learning, I guess.
Okay, self-taught.
And I've learned a lot. Yeah. And I would love to help spread the word about you know, sign language and deaf rights, and how to pursue learning sign language in a respectful way.
I love that.
Um,
No,
yeah,
that's great.
I'm not out there like holding up signs and stuff. So I don't want like people to think I'm like a sign language activist or deaf
Sh-
activist.
No, an
These
enthusiast,
days.
perhaps.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
An advocate. I mean,
Mhm.
an ally. I get whatever word works best, but
Yeah, yeah.
that
I think
isn't as
ally
extreme
is good.
as activist. I love that, and yeah,
Yeah.
that's. I was looking into, like, when you told me that that's what it was. I was doing like a little bit of preliminary research into it, and there was
Mhm.
so much that I didn't know. So I'm excited about this, but I do want to start with like the why behind it. Like, what brought you? Like, why is
Mhm.
this your passion? Why are we talking about this today?
That yes. That is, like, super important, because the way that I got my foot into sign language is actually the reason why I'm so passionate about sign language and deaf rights.
Okay.
Um, so, I mean, I've always been, like, fascinated with sign language, with it's called, hold on, where's my notes? It's called a hold on, give me a manual language.
Okay.
So like us speaking, this is an oral language, obviously,
Sure.
and then a sign language is a manual language. Um, and
Makes
it
sense.
is a legit language, just like the English that we are speaking, just like the Japanese, like and it has its own like grammar and culture and everything.
Wow.
So I was always interested in sign language. I just thought it was cool. And then when I became a mother, when I had my kids, I had heard about baby sign language. I don't know if
Oh,
you've heard about
I
this.
have definitely
Um,
not heard about baby sign language.
okay.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
So baby sign language is like all over the social medias. It's like
Okay.
there are books everywhere, videos, whatever,
So I've been
and
under a
it's
rock. Okay.
well, I mean, you don't have kids, you are young, like,
Okay.
it's not a corner of the internet that, you know, you would happen upon.
Okay, fair.
Um, yeah.
Anyway.
And so yeah, so sign language is like a system of using, signs to communicate with your baby when they're not speaking yet.
Okay.
And you can start baby sign language from literally from birth. You just like they're simple like ASL signs and gestures. Um, and that was my foot in the door. I
I
paid
see.
for like this like a baby sign language class. It's kind of like baby yoga. It's just
Okay.
like you attend, you know, these little classes and things.
Sure.
And so I was driving, but then I was more interested in like, you know, learning beyond that. And that's when I found out that baby sign language was not a great thing.
Oh. Oh no.
Yes.
Why not?
Um, yeah, let me tell you.
Oh boy.
So let me take a sip.
Oh yeah, no, here, let me do the same. But my
Ah.
cup's really loud, so I'm gonna lean away from the mic. Okay.
So, baby sign language in theory, like is not bad. Like teaching your children um, manual languages is great for their development. It's great for their memory. It's great for, you know, caretaker and child bonding. It's all great, except
There's the
baby
accept.
sign. Except it's been developed by hearing people,
Ah,
developed and marketed by hearing people.
naturally.
Uh, yeah,
Uh,
yeah. So, and the thing about baby sign language is that it's basically like a fake pigeon. Now,
mhm.
I'm not saying that pigeon languages are bad, but
We're gonna have to circle back to that because I don't know if I quite know
yes.
what a pigeon language is, but
Oh, okay.
continue that thought.
Yes, yes. So, um, so baby sign language is. I haven't tried it in the U.S. I started it when I was in Japan, but they have the same thing. And in Japan, it's like a bunch of ASL signs, a few JSL, Japanese Sign Language signs, and
Okay.
gestures. So it's just like a mix mash of like two different languages, and then basically once the child starts vocalizing and speaking, most families just drop it and they
I
don't
see.
carry it on. Um, and it's kind of trendy, quote unquote trendy.
Oh, goodness.
Um, yeah. And so um, because I was so interested in like actual sign languages and deaf culture, I started following a lot of people, deaf creators on social media, and started listening to their voices, what they had to say about it. And I realized that baby sign language is cultural and language appropriation.
Wow. Well, like,
Mm.
in language appropriate, what, like, that's not even like a phrase that I think of very often, even though like it applies
Yeah.
to a lot. Like, I'm sure it applies when people appropriate, AAVE or like things like that. So,
Mhm.
but it's a phrase that I never really thought about until you just said it right then. But it makes sense. And I like,
Yeah.
as you were saying that, I was thinking like I could see how that could cause confusion.
Mhm.
So,
Yes.
like, maybe not
Yes.
the greatest.
Yeah. Yeah, and so like the what the deaf people what they want everyone to know is that they're not trying to gatekeep their language. Obviously, they would love to have more people know sign language so that they can actually communicate in society.
Hmm.
Um, but when you have hearing people who don't know the deaf culture, who don't actually know deaf people,
Right.
you know, are teaching this language. Not only are they taking up the space that could be offered to a deaf person, but they're oftentimes teaching the language wrong.
Just doing
Yeah,
everybody a disservice.
yeah,
Oh
yeah.
boy.
And the problem is that which this is kind of like a unfortunate, like I guess you can't really do much about this. Like this is a fault of hearing people, but hearing people feel comfortable learning from other hearing people, and
Sure.
yeah,
I mean it while it sounds like but like it makes sense. Like it
it
just
yeah,
inherently it makes sense that like you'll gravitate towards people like you, whether or not you
yeah,
think about it. It makes sense.
yeah, exactly. And it's kind of um, like actually, guys, you would have a better grasp of the language and a more natural grasp of the language if you learn from the people who use it because they need it. Um,
They
and
know it
so it's kind
best.
of like, yeah, yeah. It's kind of like if if you have an American person, like, no Japanese background teaching Japanese. And I've seen this done too on social media, and like they
Oh,
teach it wrong,
absolutely.
or, and I mean, if that person grew up in Japan, that's another story if, if they know.
Sure, like if
But
it's
yeah.
actually a part of the culture they grew up in, that's one thing.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because then it's not, I guess it wouldn't be appropriating if that was their culture too.
Yeah, yeah. And there are actual hearing people in the deaf community. They're called coda or soda.
I actually I knew about this part only because I went
Yes.
to high school with a friend of mine in high school was a child of deaf parents, both
Ah,
like two deaf
yes.
parents. And
Yes.
so yes, and he would
Yeah.
talk about it every now and again and how
Yeah.
he would I mean, he was of course sign with his parents, but yes.
Exactly. So a coda, child of deaf adults, or soda, sibling of deaf adults, uh, is someone who is part of the culture who would, I mean, they would be the most acceptable person to teach sign language. But even then, I think a true respectable or respectful coda would understand. that they have a privilege that, their deaf family doesn't have, and wouldn't take up that space.
Right.
Um,
One
yeah,
would hope.
one would hope. And so, like, I, I, because I learned this, I want more people to know that, like, it's okay if you got your start in baby sign language, because it's very, like, it's the kiddie pool. You're dipping your toe in the kiddie pool. It's digestible.
It's
Um,
trendy. It's the what you're seeing.
yeah, yeah. But it's so much more important to continue that education the respectful way.
Sure. And then, I mean, part of that, I'm sure, is making sure that, or
Mhm.
doing your absolute best to make sure you're
Mhm.
consuming accurate information about it from the get-go,
Exactly.
even,
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
because
So I
you get off
wanted
on the
to,
wrong
like,
foot.
exactly. And so I don't know if I'm, like, trying to, like, right my wrongs, but I'm just trying to, like, help get the word out, because it's interesting. This is something that I've heard a lot of deaf people say, but, like, hearing people sometimes have the biggest problems listening.
Boy, howdy, yeah.
Like, your
Yeah.
ears work. Why aren't you listening to the deaf people?
Oh my
Uh,
God. Yeah. Nail on the
yeah,
head
yeah,
there.
yeah. And I wanted to, like, share a little bit about the history of sign language,
Oh my God. Yes, please
because
do.
yeah, yeah. um, so it's, like, really fascinating. I hope people come away from this segment thinking, like, oh, I want to, like, start learning sign language, because it's not as daunting as it sounds. It's really fun. It's really interesting. And it's extremely helpful, because you never know when you're, like, in a situation where maybe you can't hear the person next to you, but you need to, like, convey something. And, like, even if you are, if you are hearing, if you don't have auditory issues, anyone can benefit from sign language.
It's another language. Anyone could benefit from being
Exactly.
multilingual. Sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it is said that sign language was first developed in France in 1760.
Okay. Wow.
That is when 1755 is when, like, the first ever school for deaf was created in France.
Okay.
Um, but there is records of signed language before that as well. For example, in the US, there is the Plains Indian Sign Language.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
That's
this
okay.
is,
I didn't even. I'm learning already so much.
yeah, yeah. And it's fascinating. So the Plains Indians, the Plains nations, I don't know exactly how many there were or are, but I mean, like, 100 at least,
Sure.
like, close to 100. And
Yeah.
this spans from central Canada, central and western US, and northern Mexico.
Wow.
And so, yeah,
Like
and
it,
all these
North
nations.
American, truly, like the
Yeah,
whole continent.
yeah. Yeah, and all these nations are trading and, encountering each other, but they don't have one common language. So they had
Hmm.
developed the plains sign, and they would use that to communicate and trade amongst each other.
I mean, people are so just wow. Humans are pretty
Yeah,
cool. They surely
yeah,
can
yeah,
be.
yeah, exactly. Um, so, anyways, back to 1760 in France, with the first school for the deaf. Um, and then, so that's where, like, I guess sign language first, like, really took off in Europe and the Western world. And so American Sign Language, which everyone's, like, familiar with, it's booming, it's trendy,
Right.
is heavily influenced by French Sign Language.
Okay. But they are
Mhm.
different. French Sign
They
Language is
are,
different than
yes.
American Sign Language, right? Okay.
Yes, yes. There are a lot of similarities, but they're completely different. It's kind of like I mean, it's kind of like the oral languages as well. Like there may be some similar sounding words,
Mhm.
but overall, it's very different. Each each culture, each country has its own sign language, and they're very different, and they're very influenced by that culture, not just the deaf culture,
Okay. I
which is
mean, that makes sense.
fascinating.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because then it
yeah.
makes you think of, like, just all of the different slang that the different languages have and
Hmm.
how that, plays into it. Okay, no, I think about it for just a second longer and it all clicks.
Yes, yes, exactly. And so even this is a fun little factoid. In Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts, Martha's Vineyard is like this like little island off of Massachusetts, and Martha's Vineyard has its own Martha's Vineyard sign language. It's kind of like yeah.
Okay. Their own little dialect?
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of dying out. But at one point, um, the whole island, everyone, regardless if they were deaf or hearing, could communicate in sign language.
Wow.
Um,
I mean,
because
like, that's yeah, no, go on.
because in the 17th century, the Martha's Vineyard was settled by a group of people carrying a deafness gene.
Okay.
And there was, I mean, this is the 17th century. You're settling an island.
Yes.
There's not much people coming in, coming out. So there is a lot of in marriage, another word for incest.
Uh-huh. Yep.
so so if two people with similar bloodlines, similar having this deafness gene get together, you're gonna have more
A
deaf
lot
babies.
more of the deafness gene, sure.
Yeah, yeah. So there was such a high population of deaf people that peaked in 1840. Basically, everyone knew how to use the sign language.
Wow.
Um, After that, more people from the outside came in, and the blood was kind of like thinned out.
Yeah.
So now
Fewer
I
deaf
don't think.
people, I suppose, then
Hmm.
was the
Hmm.
outcome.
Yes, yes. So nowadays, I don't, it's not as prominent. I don't think everyone knows sign language, but there
I
was a
surely
time
don't.
that everyone did. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. Um, and so going back to Japanese sign language, at first I was always interested in ASL because that was like my first exposure to sign language when I was living in the U.S. And I wondered if I should study ASL or JSL, but
Mhm.
since I lived in Japan, I was like, okay, I'm going to use it more here. So
That makes sense.
JSL is what I chose. Yeah.
I mean, what you get more practice with, I'm sure that would make the most
Hmm.
sense. You don't use it, you
Yeah.
lose it, they say.
Exactly, exactly. So the history about JSL is it was developed by this guy named Tashiro Furukawa
Okay.
in 1878. Who he was the leader who opened the first school for the deaf in Japan, which was right here in Kyoto.
Oh my god, cool. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
I have not seen it, but I think I know where it is. I think I've driven past it once, maybe.
Work.
But yeah, yeah,
I
work.
love that. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to. So I'm currently I attend a sign language club twice a month.
Okay.
And so hopefully we'll have like a field trip there
That'd be
someday.
Wonderful.
But yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, I look forward to
And
hearing about it when you do. We'll have to have you
yes.
back.
Yes. Sorry, this is getting kind of long.
Oh,
I just have
please,
like
no, this is what this is for. Yes.
so JSL has many dialects, just like Japanese, like the oral language does.
Hmm.
For example, like it's really like the difference between, say, a New York accent, New York dialect, and like a Texas dialect.
Same
they're very
language, but
different.
you could
Exactly.
still be very, yeah, very different.
Yes, yes. So like there are different signs uh depending on where you live. Um there's mainly the Tokyo style and then the Kansai style. That's including, Osaka and Kyoto and where I am.
Okay.
Um which is also fascinating because it speaks on the different cultures within the country.
Yeah.
Um
It, it's it's kind wow. It's a lot. It's a lot to think about for me because I'm thinking
yes.
just like that how different it can be. Like I guess like geographically, like in the grand scheme, it's not like that like far apart, right? So it's just
Mhm.
like so how different it can be just depending on the
Yeah.
culture that it my mind's just over here over it all.
Yes, yes. Oh man, I'm such like a well, I wouldn't say a language or linguistic nerd because I don't know much, but it's like I love language.
I mean, it's clear.
Yes. Yeah. And then okay, so back to like the whole like the issue with hearing people appropriating, the sign languages and stuff. Part of the issue is that in 1880 there was a Milan conference, um, and it was called the official name was the Second International Congress on Education of the Deaf. Um, Second, except this was the first time actual deaf educators were part of it.
Okay. So the real first one, let's be real.
The real first one, the
Yeah.
real first one. Yeah. And this was obviously in Milan, Italy. And the deliberations that happened between September 6th and 11th declared that oralism, so, speaking education, was superior to the manual education, sign language.
Okay. Based
Yeah.
off of what?
Which, based off of hearing people saying that deaf people need to be integrated into a hearing society and
Ugh.
they need to be able to speak with their mouths and they need to be able to read people's lips.
Ugh.
Um, yeah. And so all across Europe and the US, sign language was banned from schools, and that includes deaf schools.
What the hell?
Yeah. Now,
Ugh.
this was in 1880. Um, you want to know when this was reversed?
Probably far too long afterwards.
So, the 21st International Congress on Education of the Deaf in Vancouver, the board made a formal apology. This was in
Oh gosh.
2010.
Yeah, that I mean I can't say I'm surprised about that. That
Hmm. Hmm.
unfortunately,
Yeah.
golly, talk about too little too late.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. So that's
but I
the
mean,
other
I
thing.
guess
It's
they
like,
finally came around.
yes.
God.
Yeah. And it's also like you see on like social media all these videos of like deaf babies getting their cochlear implants and finally
Yes.
they can hear. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just it's kind of like it's what's the term? It's like it's what is it? Oh my god, I'm blanking on the vocab. It's
Like,
something porn. What is it called?
oh gosh. It's like, no,
Yes.
I know where I'm on the right track with you, but I'm
Yeah,
blanking on
it's
the
right
term too.
there.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, uh, but anyway, I know what you're talking about
Yes.
because I've seen
Yes.
videos like that. It's along like the same type of videos of like I feel like it's in the same like category as like the soldier comes home and surprises like it's that
Exactly.
kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Okay, anyway,
Yes. Yes. And so everyone's like, "Oh my god, like, finally the baby is fixed. The baby can hear." And so they applaud when the baby is quote unquote, made hearing. Um, but
yeah,
if and even in audiology, in the medical world, you know, they put this. importance on being able to hear rather than being able to communicate.
Ugh,
So like when a deaf baby um you know gets support and things in the medical world, they are, given hearing aids and things rather than supporting the parents in uh, teaching their sign language, um,
that
which is a
yeah.
huge issue.
Yeah, well, because it's not like there's no help there really. I mean,
Mm,
like, yeah, I don't know, because I guess like that just makes it seem like it's a wronged to be righted, or a wrong to be
yes.
righted, or like just a
Mhm.
problem to be fixed, and it's not. It's just a difference of ability.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and I think people oftentimes, unless you have hearing aids, unless you have cochlear implants, you don't understand that it does not fix deafness.
Yeah,
It gives you a certain level of hearing ability, or it may support your hearing, but it is nothing like what you and I hear. And it can be painful, it can be exhausting,
yeah.
and so yeah, so I
No,
get
I
so like
and
riled up about this.
No, and you saying that, like, it reminds me of a colleague of mine at work. Her husband has hearing loss that was
Hmm.
not from birth, but like it was
Hmm.
early on. And he had now has a thing, like
Hmm.
a cochlear implant, right? Is that what it is? Uh,
Yes, yes.
and he often turns it off because he was saying that because that he got it later in life, so he spent
Hmm.
so long not having full hearing ability in that ear, that he said
Hmm.
like that when it's turned on, it's overwhelming, that like as you were
Yes.
saying, like sometimes like he
Yeah.
has to just turn it off because it's too much. And that's just something that I know I didn't think about much until he pointed it out. That's like, I mean, yeah, if you're not used to hearing little, if you're used to hearing little to nothing, or whatever the alternative, I don't know if it's nothing, I don't know what it is that
Hmm.
people are actually experiencing. But like it to then go to like all of it all at once, or that
Yeah.
could be a lot.
Yeah.
I'm sure it can.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Ugh,
So yeah, I'm just like signed language is so beautiful, and I just want everyone to know like their local sign language.
yeah. No, I'm not. I'm gonna go look into it more, because like I was looking at to prepare for this, or just to kind of get my head around it. I was looking. I don't. And forgive me. I haven't like done the deep digging. I don't know if this is one of those ones that's like reputable, but I did find the ASL
Mhm.
app, their website, and they had like an FAQ. And I was looking
Mm,
through that, and it was kind of going into, what the deaf community is, like the capital D
yes,
deaf community
yes.
versus the
Mhm,
lowercase d deaf community. And so I thought that was
mhm.
interesting. And then like it went into things like lip reading, grammar, like kind of a lot of the stuff that we've already
Mhm.
touched on. But
Mm.
I did think it was very interesting, the capital D deaf community
Yeah,
versus
yeah.
the lowercase d. What do you Are you familiar with that? I mean, I'm sure you are.
Yes. Yeah, I wanted to talk about that too. Yeah. So, yeah, there is the capital D, as you said, and the lowercase d. And the difference between that is people who use the capital D, they identify like as part of the deaf community. The lowercase d is the the condition.
Okay.
So so it's more um, they have deafness, but they aren't exactly part of the deaf community.
Okay.
Maybe they became deaf later in life. Yeah, the lowercase d is the condition, and then the capital D is the whole culture.
I see.
And it's a rich culture. And as I'm not part of the culture, I couldn't begin to explain what that is.
Sure.
Um, but it's like a whole culture, and I think a lot of capital D deaf people um, do not view themselves as disabled
Okay. I mean, that
because
makes
they
sense.
Right, right. The only difference they have is the way that they hear from other people, but they have their own language. They have no issues communicating uh, with other people within their language, and so it's just a different way of life.
Yeah, I mean they're not disabled. It's just yeah, different,
Mhm,
just different.
mhm.
And different's fun and fabulous and beautiful and slay, and we love that.
Exactly. And if you get into um, like look into all the stuff that these deaf creators are saying on the social media, a lot of them do not regret being deaf. It's not, you know, it's not a minus for them. Like
I
you were
love
just
hearing
saying,
that.
it's a different experience. Yeah, yeah. For example, like blindness is an issue that a lot of people, you know, who have blindness are looking for a cure. Deaf people are not looking for a cure. They're looking for more support to make, you know, their lives easier
Right.
in a hearing world. But they don't. They're
That's
not
so
looking for a
interesting.
cure. Mm,
Huh. That is very interesting.
mm. The attitude, obviously, with blindness, it you know it can be dangerous. It can be very hindering, and so
That makes
finding a
yeah.
cure for that is very important. But for a lot of, you know, capital D deaf people, it's just their way of life.
Yeah. And I mean they works for I mean they're able to
Yeah,
live fulfilling like for all intents and purposes normal lives like as normal
exactly.
as any human life
Yeah,
is.
exactly, exactly. And it's very, it's definitely, you know, not disabled, differently abled.
Differently abled. Very that. Very that.
Mm.
And then I know like I we were talking earlier. I mean, I'm sure, and part of the some of the FAQ I was looking at too with lip reading, and like,
Mm.
I is that like, do all people like, is that something that is important? Like, do deaf people and or do people do you know of in like the capital D deaf community? Is that like a
Mhm.
point of contention? Like, is that something that is debated or like found? Like, what's the deal with lip reading?
Well, yeah. So lip reading is is necessary, but also very difficult because everyone speaks differently, right? I'm not so sure about ASL, but in Japanese Sign Language, in JSL, um, the your mouthing is just as important as making signs with your hands.
Okay,
Um, for example, one sign could have different meanings, and so the way that you shape your mouth will differentiate between those signs.
so your
For
mouth is in
example,
that situation just another part of the
yes,
sign. Okay.
it's kind of, it's almost like the grammar part of it. For example, if you have the sign for cold, I'm showing you right now.
Oh, okay. I'm learning.
Uh,
I'm learning. Okay.
yes. So, you know, you're shaking your fist, you're cold. This is also the sign for winter. But depending on, you know, how, you know, or, you know, like how you move your
Okay.
mouth, the meaning changes. And so that's another thing where like during the whole pandemic, everyone's wearing masks, and it was so isolating for people who were deaf because
Oh my
now they
god.
can't see how people are, you know, what people are saying. A lot of times you are dependent on lip reading, even though, you know, sign language is your main language.
Wow. And that's interesting to me. I mean, I love that because or like learning that information because like when I asked the question, I was thinking lip reading. Of course, that just shows my bias, but like I'm thinking lip reading of like, you know, reading like normal there I shouldn't say that normal regular was it oral speech? Pardon me. Oral speech like hearing like they're that they would be looking for oral speech in lips, but I didn't even consider that the mouth could still be used as a part of the
Yeah,
sign
yeah,
without it
yeah.
being oral language. That or I guess linked to oral language
Yes,
in that way.
yes. hmm So, yeah, the lip reading is very important for, communication in signs, in sign language with deaf people, but it's also, you can't rely just on lip reading. And I think that's a lot, what a lot of, hearing people assume, like, oh, you can just read my lips, like just read my lips.
Ugh.
But like there's some words that are, very similar
Yeah.
in mouth shape. And so if you already have a audio processing issue, regardless if you're deaf or not, some people just, struggle with auditory process. Um, and they can hear, but their brains just don't process it the same way.
Hmm.
And so it's a difficult.
And that's just a lot to ask someone to do, and for what? Like,
Exactly. Exactly.
oh,
There is this um, on Instagram. I think she's on TikTok as well. Uh, a deaf blind creator,
okay.
Lonnie. Oh, Lonnie. What was her last name? But she does have her own. She does hold her own sign language classes. But she has a quote, and it goes. Um, Deaf people cannot learn to hear, but hearing people can learn to sign.
Yes.
And like that her quote is like incredible. It's like that's a great way to like think about, like, instead of trying to get deaf people to acclimate to hearing culture, hearing society, we can do things to make, it more comfortable for deaf people in
Yes.
yeah.
And I mean, if it like yeah, that absolutely. We can learn to sign, and yeah, that I love that. They can't learn how to hit that. No, that makes sense
Mm.
to me. I guess I don't know why it wouldn't
Yeah,
make sense
yeah,
to other,
yeah,
but it sure makes sense to me. But
yeah.
well, wow. I mean, well,
Yes.
I think that, like, I
I
mean,
got very
unless like you've got anything else, like that seems like a fabulous note to wrap things up on, with a great quote like that.
yeah.
Unless there's anything else you wanted to touch on. If not, I would just ask you to do any of your plugs, your sign up, whatever you're wanting to.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I absolutely I recommend. I hope more people will take interest in sign language. Obviously, like, I don't know much, and I'm not a pro in this. But if anyone wants like resources, I have them.
Great.
you know, like, come, DM me,
I mean, even
comment, whatever. I would.
if you would give me some of those, I could even see about getting them linked into the
Oh
podcast
yes.
notes for people to go
Yeah,
and
yeah,
look at some
yeah.
of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would love to do that. Yeah, and yeah, I guess. And yeah, well, you plugged my podcast for me earlier,
Yeah, I guess
so
I jumped the gun, got a little excited.
I love it. No, thank
Of
you.
course. Oh my
This has
goodness.
been so fun.
Yes, Shoko, my God, thank you so much for being my very first guest. And
Oh, thank
I
you,
don't
Presto.
know when this will be out, because I I really could put it out at any point. I know I realize this, but we're so
Oh,
close now. Like, I'm so close to that 10,000 milestone, and I promised it
yeah.
since like 8. So like
Mhm.
I gotta hold out. I could hold out. As exciting as, especially after this, I'm gonna be done with the first episode. It's gonna be ready to go.
Oh.
But you know what? We're gonna do it. It'll be soon enough.
Yes, I'm so excited.
Me too. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you again, Shoko, and everyone. Please, I know I plugged it at the beginning. I'll plug it again. Go find Cup of Shokolatte, podcast on Spotify. I bet Apple is it. Where else can they find it?
It's Google Podcast. That's going out of the way though. So it'll be YouTube podcast. Or you just YouTube it, I guess. It's
Yeah.
like the same thing.
Great. Well,
Yeah,
fabulous.
thank you
Well,
so much.
until next time, thank you so much for sharing with me. Okay,
Thank
bye.
you, Presto. Bye.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much to my very first guest of Diva. That Shoko, that was wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your passion with us, me, us, all of us. I can't wait for these to continue. Thank you again so much. Like that was fun. I very much enjoyed that, and I hope that y'all learned something. I know I certainly did. And with that, y'all, I think that that wraps things up for the very first episode of my like, the very cool. Y'all, I thank you for bearing with me. I appreciate you, uh, while I'm getting through this workflow, figuring out how I wanna do this. I appreciate y'all. I'm excited to see where this goes. I hope that you enjoyed, and I can't wait to hang out with y'all next time on Diva.